I was at my son's house for Christmas dinner, just enjoying the family vibe, when a number I didn't know called. Go home, right now. The voice was tight, strange, but his panic was contagious. Who is this? I asked, and just like that, the good feeling of the night was gone. Just hurry, he said. So I dropped everything and left. When I got home, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But before we get into that, please subscribe to the channel and comment what time it is where you are. So the phone started ringing, cutting right through the quiet house. I put down my cup of tea, which was still steaming, and picked up the phone, hoping for good news. I could see the Christmas lights twinkling outside through the frosted-up window, making red and green shadows on my old leather chair. Hello? I said, my voice all bright and cheery for a holiday call. Dad? It was Brandon. His voice hit me like a blast of cold air. It was flat, measured, and just wrong. Son, I was just thinking about Christmas dinner plans, about your mother's turkey recipe. I've decided we're spending Christmas with just our immediate family this year. He said every word carefully. Without you. The fireplace was crackling, but suddenly I felt ice cold. My reading glasses slid down my nose as I just blinked, trying to make sense of what he said. But son, what happened? Did I do something wrong? Nothing happened. His tone was final, like the case was closed. I just want a peaceful holiday. Ashley completely agrees with this decision. My chest felt tight. Ashley, who always made sure I was comfortable, who saved me the wishbone every year. The same Ashley who'd called me last month asking for Dorothy's stuffing recipe. Brandon, I don't get it. We've spent every Christmas together since Mom's been gone. We're done here, Dad. This is over. The dial tone buzzed in my ear. I just held the phone for a few seconds, staring at it like it could give me an answer. My tea was cold now. My hands were shaking a little as I finally put the phone back. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 8 times. Every chime sounded as final as my son's voice. I didn't move a muscle in my chair. I watched the Christmas lights outside get blurry as my eyes filled with tears. I don't know how long I sat there. The fire was just glowing embers when I finally got up on shaky legs and walked to the window. My reflection stared back at me from the dark glass. A 68-year-old man who suddenly looked every single one of his years. Behind me in the reflection, it started to snow. I pressed my hand against the cold window, feeling the frost through the glass. The neighbors' houses were glowing with warm light. Families were probably all around their tables, telling stories and laughing. I could see the Thompsons' tree across the street right in their front window, with presents already wrapped under it. My breath fogged up the glass as I whispered to my reflection, what did I do wrong? Dorothy. The silence that answered felt heavier than the snow piling up outside. I traced a finger through the condensation on the glass, just drawing random patterns while my mind replayed every single talk I'd had with Brandon over the past few months. Was I pushing too hard? Trying to force the old traditions? Trying to keep Dorothy's memory alive at Christmas? The Andersons' kitchen light went out next door, leaving just the streetlights to light up the falling snow. I watched every flake dance in that yellow glow, and I remembered Brandon as a boy pressing his nose against this same window, counting snowflakes and begging me for winter stories. That little boy felt like a complete stranger now. My stiff, arthritic fingers finally dropped from the cold glass, leaving just a small smudge where my hand was. I'd been standing at that window for 2.5 hours. The fire was totally out, with nothing left but cold ashes and the smell of burnt oak. Outside, the neighbors' lights went off one by one until only a few porch lights were left on, making lonely yellow puddles on the snowy street. I just wandered into the kitchen, going through the motions of making a late dinner I knew I wouldn't eat. The microwave hummed while it heated up leftover soup, but I barely even heard it. I kept replaying Brandon's voice in my head, trying to find a clue I'd missed. The phone book. I should just call him back. Say I'm sorry for whatever I did wrong. I pulled the heavy yellow pages out of the drawer under the counter. But something else fell out with it. Dorothy's old photo album. Its leather cover was all cracked from age. My hands were shaking as I opened it to the first page. There he was, 5-year-old Brandon, with a gap-toothed smile from ear to ear, holding a wooden toy plane under our Christmas tree. His pajamas were all wrinkled, and his dark hair was sticking up everywhere. The pure happiness on that little face just made my chest hurt. I turned the page real slow, the plastic cover crinkling under my fingers. There was Dorothy in our old kitchen, with flour in her red hair like a dusting of snow, laughing at something I'd said while she was rolling out cookie dough. Her green dress, the one she wore every single Christmas Eve, had spots all over it, but her smile could have lit up the whole neighborhood. Dorothy, why did everything change so much? I whispered to her picture. When you were here, we were a real family. The next photo just stopped my heart, the three of us together. Dorothy holding baby Brandon to her chest and a younger me with my arm around them both, all of us smiling big for the camera. We looked unbreakable back then, like nothing could ever pull us apart. I traced Dorothy's face with my finger. I remembered that Christmas morning 15 years ago, Brandon tearing down the stairs in his Superman pajamas. Dorothy was making her famous cinnamon rolls, and I was pretending to be surprised by how excited he was. He begged me to read The Night Before Christmas 3 times that day, all snuggled up against me with chocolate on his fingers and wonder in his eyes. When did that wonder just disappear? When did my boy turn into this cold stranger who could cut me out of his life so clean? I kept flipping through the pages, and every picture felt like a knife twisting a little deeper. Dorothy's last Christmas was 5 years ago. The cancer had already made her hands weak, but she still insisted on wrapping every single present herself. Brandon hadn't visited as much that year, making excuses about work and things he had to do. I just chose to believe him instead of asking questions. "Keep the family together, Robert," Eleanor had whispered to me in her last week. Her eyes weren't bright anymore, just cloudy and worried. "Promise me you won't let you and Brandon drift apart." I promised her. But have I failed her this badly? The microwave beeped, but I just ignored it. The soup could stay there forever. Nothing mattered but these pictures back when we were a whole family. I reached for the phone 3 times, even started dialing Brandon's number, but I always hung up. What would I even say? What words can fix a gap this wide? The grandfather clock struck 11:30. I carefully closed the album, but I pulled out the photo of Dorothy laughing in the kitchen. I put that one on my nightstand. I wanted to see her smile first thing in the morning. Maybe she could help me see what went so wrong with our boy. As I got ready for bed, Dorothy's side of the mattress just looked so big and empty. It's been that way for 5 long years. But tonight felt even emptier, like losing Brandon made the loneliness in this house twice as bad. I set my alarm for 8, a habit from 40 years of work that just won't quit, and pulled the blankets up to my chin. Through the window, the snow was still coming down slow and steady. It was covering the whole neighborhood in a clean white blanket that'll be gray slush by morning. The album went back in the drawer. But not before I whispered one last question into the dark. Where's that little boy who used to beg me to read him stories? The morning light was coming through the cracks in the curtains that I never really open. It made gray shadows on my messy table. The newspaper was folded next to my oatmeal, which had gone cold while I was reading the obituaries. That's a habit that feels more fitting every year. Dorothy's picture smiled at me from the nightstand. But even seeing her smile couldn't lift this heavy weight in my chest. The phone rang and made me jump, and my spoon clattered against the bowl. After our last talk, any call felt like it could be another fight. My hands were shaking as I checked who it was. My heart kind of stuttered when I saw Brandon's name. I was full of hope and dread as I picked up the phone. "Hello." My voice came out way more careful than I wanted it to. "Dad." But this time there was a little warmth in his voice. "I want to apologize for yesterday. I was totally wrong." Relief hit me so hard I had to hold onto the table. "Son, I'm so glad you called. I was worried I'd done something." "No." "Dad, you didn't do a thing. I was stressed from work and I took it out on the wrong person." He sounded just like he did when he was a kid, saying sorry for breaking something or tracking mud in the house. "Ashley reminded me how important our family traditions are. We want you to come for Christmas dinner after all." "Of course I'll come." The words just came tumbling out. I felt a rush of pure joy. "I'll make your mother's turkey recipe and I'll bring the cranberry sauce." That sounds perfect." "Dad, bring everything you usually make." He paused, and something in that silence made me knock my coffee mug. Ashley's really excited. The kids keep asking for Grandpa Robert's stories. But underneath all that, something felt rushed, rehearsed, like he was reading a script, not talking to his own dad. "Brandon, what made you flip so fast yesterday? You were so dead set." "I just realized I was wrong, that's all." He started talking faster right over me. "Listen, I gotta run. Work's calling. You know how it is. We'll see you Christmas Day, round noon." "Wait, son, can we just talk for a—" "Love you, Dad. See you soon." The line went dead before I could even finish. I just sat there holding the phone, staring at it, like it was going to give me answers I didn't even know how to ask for. For a second, I felt this rush of pure joy. Christmas was saved. My family was whole again. Dorothy's worries were all for nothing. But then in the silence, doubt started creeping in like a cold draft. Something in Brandon's voice. It just didn't sound like my son. The words were right, he said sorry, but it all felt so hollow. It was mechanical. Like he was just checking off a box, not trying to fix things with me. I shot up out of my chair. I paced over to the kitchen window. Yesterday's snow made the whole yard look like a postcard. The Andersons kids were already outside building a snowman, and I could hear them laughing in the quiet air. Normal families doing normal things, so why didn't any of this feel normal? Maybe I'm overthinking this, I muttered to Dorothy's memory, turning back to the living room. He apologized. He wants me there. Isn't that what's important? But as I went through my morning routine, doing dishes, recycling the paper, rinsing my coffee mug, that nagging feeling just got stronger. Brandon had shut down any attempt to really talk. He bolted off the phone like he was scared I'd ask the wrong question. What could be the wrong question? I picked up the phone again. I dialed the first 3 digits of his number and then just stopped. What was I even going to say? Son, your apology sounded completely fake. Why'd you hang up so fast? Do you even really want me there? It sounded paranoid even in my own head. I put the phone down and walked into the kitchen. I started running through a mental list for Christmas dinner. The turkey alone was going to take hours. The cranberry sauce had to be fresh, and I was missing ingredients for Dorothy's stuffing recipe. But when I reached for my shopping list, my hand just froze. Something Brandon said echoed in my head. Ashley reminded me how important our family traditions are. Since when did Ashley need to remind Brandon of anything? He grew up with those traditions. He lived them every single year until his mother died. And why bring Ashley into it like that, as if he needed her permission to invite his own father to Christmas? I stared at the blank notepad pen just hanging there. That bad feeling settled deep in my bones. After that call, the next 3 days were all business. I woke up on December 22nd with an energy I hadn't felt since Dorothy passed. I was humming old Christmas carols while making coffee. The notepad next to my cereal was filling up fast with menus and lists. I checked and double-checked every single thing. Turkey cranberry sauce, Dorothy's stuffing, I muttered. I was tapping my pen on the old kitchen table. Everything had to be just right. This was my one chance to prove our family traditions still meant something, that some things can't be broken by grief or time. The butcher shop over on Maple Street was a madhouse with holiday shoppers, but I waited in line. I was determined to get the perfect turkey. When it was my turn, I leaned over the glass counter like my life depended on it. I need your best turkey. I told the butcher his white apron was a mess. This is for a very special family get-together. His eyes lit up like he understood. Ah, bringing everyone back together. I've got just the thing for you. The 22-pound turkey he showed me looked like it was from a magazine, all plump and perfect, with skin that I knew would get all golden and crispy. I paid the man no questions asked, just thinking about carrying it into Brandon's kitchen. On December 23rd, I headed to the mall. The holiday crowds were insane, like a giant school of fish swimming between stores. The toy store was overwhelming until I saw it a model airplane kit. It was a vintage Cessna, and it reminded me of that wooden plane in the old photo. For Emily, I got an art set with colored pencils lined up like a rainbow in a wooden box. That evening, I went out to my little winter garden to get some herbs. I could hear their woody stems snapping in my hands. I had Eleanor's marinade recipe written in her perfect handwriting, propped up against the sugar bowl while I chopped garlic and pulled leaves off the rosemary. Eleanor, I hope I'm remembering this right, I whispered to her picture on the windowsill. This has to be perfect. The marinade turned into a green paste that smelled incredible. Garlic, rosemary, thyme, olive oil, and Dorothy's secret ingredient, a little splash of white wine. I worked it under the turkey's skin with my fingers. It felt like I was doing some old ritual to make things right. Christmas Eve morning was gray and cold, but I was in a good mood. I wrapped all the presents with perfect sharp corners and tied the ribbons just so. My best Christmas shirt was pressed and waiting. I put on a little cologne like I was getting ready for a fight. But as the evening got closer, a bad feeling started creeping in. Brandon hadn't called to confirm anything. What time should I show up? Should I bring wine? Did the kids have any food allergies? I wasn't thinking of. I kept looking at my phone, but it stayed quiet. Then while I was washing the marinade bowls, James Parker showed up at my kitchen window. His face was all wrinkled with curiosity. Big plans for tomorrow, Robert, he called through the glass. Christmas dinner with Brandon and his family? I answered, probably too fast. We're going to be a real family again. I saw a strange look flash across James's face, but he just nodded. That's wonderful. You deserve to be happy. After he left, I couldn't get rid of the feeling that he wasn't just making small talk. But I pushed it aside. I just focused on the perfect turkey in the fridge and the wrapped gifts by the door. By bedtime on Christmas Eve, everything was ready. Everything except my heart, which was racing. It was like it was trying to find a problem. Why didn't Brandon call? Why did James look so concerned? Why did this whole thing feel so fake, like a play instead of a family get-together? I just stared at the ceiling all night. I kept telling myself that I was just nervous because I was excited. Tomorrow had to be perfect. It just had to. Christmas morning was super crisp and bright, and the snow on the ground sparkled like crazy. I got dressed really carefully, fixed my tie in the mirror, and tried to tame my hair, which just wasn't having it. The turkey carrier felt way heavier than I remembered as I put it in the car with the presents. I stopped for a second at my front door with the key in the lock and just looked back at my house. All the empty rooms were just staring back at me through the frosty windows. I suddenly got a cold chill, but I just shook it off and went to the car. Today was about family. It was about fixing things. The tires crunched on Brandon's icy driveway. The ice glittered in the sun, and they had Christmas lights around every single window and door. It looked like a picture-perfect postcard, and it made my chest feel tight with hope. I got the turkey and gifts out of the car. The cold air bit my face as I walked to the door. Before I even knocked, it opened, and there was Ashley smiling. She had flour on her red sweater that looked like powdered sugar. "Robert, we're so glad you're here. Come on in before you freeze to death." The whole house smelled like cinnamon and pine. Christmas music was playing, and the lights made colorful shadows on the shiny wood floors. Timmy popped up next to me out of nowhere. He was bouncing up and down, totally excited. "Grandpa Robert, did you bring presents? Can we open them now?" "Mom said we had to wait," Ashley said, stepping in. "Let your grandfather get settled first." Ashley laughed and took the heavy turkey carrier from my cold hands. "This thing weighs a ton. What did you do to it?" "Dorothy's secret marinade," I said. "I was taking off my scarf when Emily peeked around the corner. 24 hours of garlic, rosemary, and patience." Martha Harrington came out of the kitchen wiping her hands on a dish towel that had little dancing reindeer on it. Her eyes went wide when she saw the turkey. "Oh my God, this turkey is gorgeous. You have to tell me Dorothy's secret. I've been making the same boring bird for 30 years. "The secret is just time," I told her, shaking Kevin's hand as he gave me a nod. "Dorothy always said good things can't be rushed." Then Brandon walked in last. He was fixing his tie, but every move seemed way too stiff and controlled. He was smiling, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Thanks for coming, Dad. This means everything to us." Something in his voice made me look at him a little closer. But then Timmy grabbed my hand and pulled me to the dining room before I could think about it. The table was all lit up with candles, and everything was set with Violet's fancy china. The cloth napkins were folded into perfect little triangles, and my turkey was right there in the center of everything. The skin was all golden and shiny under the big light. "Robert, would you do the honors and carve?" Ashley asked. She handed me the electric knife. "You're the artist here." My hands were steady when I started carving. The meat was so tender it just fell off the bone. The marinade had worked perfectly. The herb crust smelled amazing, and you could hear everyone at the table murmuring about how good it looked. The conversation at dinner was easy, just flowing. Kevin asked what I've been up to since retiring, while Martha couldn't stop talking about how good my dishes were. The kids were buzzing about school and friends. You could just feel the holiday excitement in their voices. Even Brandon seemed to let his guard down, telling work stories that almost sounded real. But I noticed little things like how he'd check his watch when he thought no one was looking, or how he'd flinch when someone's phone buzzed. His laugh sounded right, but it felt hollow, like there was nothing behind it. "Grandpa, can we open presents now?" Emily asked. Her voice was soft but full of hope as she finished her food. "Please, please, please," Timmy chimed in, bouncing in his chair till Ashley put a hand on his shoulder to calm him down. We all moved to the living room for gifts. Wrapping paper was everywhere, all over the carpet. Timmy's eyes got huge when he unwrapped the model airplane. He kept turning the box over, checking out every detail. "A Cessna just like at the air show, can we build it together?" "Of course," I told him, feeling a warmth in my chest. "That's what grandpas are for." Emily hugged her art set tight. I could tell she was already planning her first drawing with those shiny new colored pencils. "I'm going to draw our whole family," she said, all serious. "Even great-grandma Dorothy, so she can be here with us, too." The room got quiet for a second. It was like Dorothy was right there with us. But it wasn't the same sharp pain I'd carried for 5 years. This felt different, softer, like she was smiling down on us. "She would have loved that," I said, my voice a little rougher than I meant. As the night went on, we all felt full and relaxed from the big meal. Kevin and I were talking baseball while Martha helped Ashley with the dishes. The kids were playing on the floor with their new toys, and their laughing was like the perfect background music. I loosened my tie and leaned back in the armchair Ashley always saves for me. Feeling better than I had in months, this was what Christmas was all about. Family all together. Keeping up traditions, sharing love. Then my phone buzzed in my jacket pocket. I ignored it. I didn't want to break the perfect mood, but it buzzed again, and it wouldn't stop. "Excuse me for just a moment," I said to Kevin, who was going on about his grandson's pitching. I stepped away from the baseball talk, my phone still vibrating against my side. The little bathroom off the hall was quiet. I closed the door and the sounds of my family faded away. The screen lit up unknown number. I almost hit ignore. I mean, who calls on Christmas night besides scammers? But then it stopped and immediately started ringing again. I was just annoyed now, so I answered, "Hello, who's calling on Christmas? You need to get home, right now." The voice was sharp and cut right to the point. A man. I didn't recognize him. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, watching my face go from annoyed to confused. "Who is this? What are you talking about?" "That doesn't matter, just get home." I squeezed the phone tighter. From behind the bathroom door, I heard Timmy telling his grandma about airplane parts. Normal Christmas sounds, but they felt a million miles away. "I don't get it. What's going on? Trust me. Go now." Then the line cut out. I was just staring at my phone, hoping it would tell me something. The guy in the mirror looked older. The worry lines around my eyes seemed deeper. That stranger's voice wasn't a prank call. It was real. It was urgent and my chest got tight. What was wrong at my house? A fire? A break-in? Did I leave something on? My mind was racing and my heart was pounding right along with it. But this was Christmas dinner, my first time with the family in 5 years. How could I just leave because of some weird call? Ashley would freak out, the kids would be confused, and Brandon would think I was just trying to get out of here. The phone felt like a brick. I couldn't decide what to do. My brain said it was nothing, just a wrong number. A prank call, or maybe someone blowing things way out of proportion. But the guy's voice, it just got to me. I checked the number again. Didn't recognize it. No voicemail. No text message. Just that sharp order to go home. Now. Through the door. I heard Brandon laugh at something Kevin said. It sounded too loud. Had he even noticed I was gone? Was he checking his watch? Wondering what was taking his dad so long? My own worried face stared back at me. The Christmas lights in the hall put red and green shadows on me. That guy's voice was in my head. "Trust me. Go now." Trust who? Why? What kind of emergency makes a stranger find my number on Christmas? But even with all the questions, my gut was screaming that something was wrong. My shoulders were tight, my breathing was short. Something deep inside me knew this wasn't just a random call. It meant something. I pictured my house all dark and empty, no lights on. The doors locked against. What if someone was in there right now, tearing through my stuff? What if it was flooding or on fire? Then, "Dad, you okay in there?" It was Brandon's voice. He sounded worried. Perfect timing. "Just a minute," I yelled back, trying to sound calm. I took a deep breath. I watched myself in the mirror, getting ready for whatever was next. That stranger's panic was contagious. I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't brush it off. I couldn't act like dinner was more important than this feeling that something was really wrong at my house. I reached for the doorknob. My fingers were shaking a little as I grabbed the cold metal. Whatever I told the family would just have to do. Whatever was going on at home couldn't wait for cake and coffee. My hand shook as I turned the knob. That stranger's voice was still ringing in my ears. The cozy family scene on the other side felt like a different world. Kids laughing, grown-ups talking over coffee. Even the Christmas lights felt wrong now, not cozy like they did an hour ago. "You good, Dad?" Brandon looked up from talking with Kevin. There was a flicker in his eyes. Was it worry or was he calculating something? "I gotta go home." The words came out sharper than I wanted. It just cut through the nice Christmas mood like a knife. Ashley showed up next to me, a dish towel still in her hand. "Home, but we haven't even had dessert. I made your favorite apple pie." "It's an emergency." I grabbed my coat from the closet, my movements all jerky and rushed. Someone called, said something's wrong at the house. The room went dead quiet except for Timmy flying his model plane around making whooshing sounds. Emily looked up from her new art stuff. Her colored pencils were scattered all over the coffee table. "What kind of emergency?" Kevin's brow wrinkled. He looked suspicious, like a guy who knows when a story doesn't add up. "I don't know yet." My fingers couldn't get the coat buttons right. I was too stressed out. "They just said I had to get home right now." Brandon stood up. He had this look of pure, concerned confusion. "Who called?" "Why wouldn't they say what's wrong?" For a split second, I just stared at my son, trying to see something. He looked worried, yeah, but there was something else under it, a look that didn't match his words. "I have to go." I bent down to kiss the kids goodbye. Their little faces just looked up at me, completely confused. "Thanks for a great Christmas dinner. Sorry to leave like this." As I ran to my car, the cold December air just smacked me in the face. I could hear the family talking through the open door. My car engine took a second to start, like it was complaining about the cold. I backed out of the driveway too fast, almost hitting Brandon's mailbox. In the rearview mirror, I saw them all bunched up in the doorway. Ashley was hugging herself and Kevin was just shaking his head. The kids were pressing their faces against the window. Brandon was standing a little bit away from them. just a dark shape against the warm light coming from the house. The neighborhood streets were empty in front of me. Christmas lights twinkled on every house. Most families were inside having that perfect holiday moment. I could see them through the windows. The radio was playing Silent Night, but nothing about tonight felt silent or holy. My knuckles were white from gripping the steering wheel. That mystery voice just kept playing in my head. Trust me and go now. But trust who and why? What could be so bad at home that I had to race back? I was speeding, flying through empty intersections. I ran a yellow light and then another one. Some gut feeling was screaming that something was wrong, even if my brain couldn't prove it. Did I leave the stove on? Or a space heater that could start a fire? No, I was so careful before I left. I double-checked everything. The house was perfect, locked up tight, ready for me to come back. Unless someone else got in. That thought was like ice in my veins. My foot pushed down harder on the gas. A break-in. That had to be it. Someone saw the house was dark on Christmas night and took their chance. An easy target while I was out celebrating with family. But how would a stranger get my number? How'd they know I wasn't home? I kept thinking about Brandon at dinner, how he kept checking his watch, that fake laugh of his. I remembered the look of relief on his face when I said I was leaving. Was I just connecting dots that weren't there? Or did my own son seem a little too eager for me to go? The thought felt like a betrayal. A father's supposed to trust his son. But that doubt was planted and it just kept growing with every mile. I turned onto my street and saw how dark all the houses were. It's Christmas night. Everyone's inside with family. Curtains are drawn, which is perfect for a break-in. My house was at the end of the block, completely dark. It looked just like I'd left it. But something felt wrong. A deep-down wrongness that made my skin crawl. I couldn't even say what it was yet. I parked behind James Parker's big oak tree instead of my own driveway. Some gut feeling told me to be quiet, not just pull right in. The only sound was the engine ticking in the cold night air. That cold air hit me as I got out of the car, and suddenly I was on high alert, noticing everything. The street I've known forever looked different, dangerous. The shadows were deeper. Normal things looked like places to hide or weapons. My house just sat there, dark against the stars. But its shape was wrong. A basement window that should have been reflecting the streetlight was just a black square. I saw broken glass sparkling on the snow underneath. Someone was inside my house, right now. My fingers felt numb as I fumbled for my phone, dialing 911 while I ducked behind James's fence. Then a flashlight beam cut across my bedroom window upstairs. It was moving slow and steady. Whoever it was, they weren't scared. They were looking for something. 911, what's your emergency? There's someone in my house, I whispered. I watched the light move from one window to the next. I can see them inside. They have a flashlight. Sir, what's your address? Are you somewhere safe? I told her the address, but my eyes were glued to that moving light. I'm outside. They broke in through the basement. Okay, officers are on their way. Please stay away from the house until they arrive. Stay away. While some lowlife was in there ruining everything Dorothy and I had built, going through our personal things, our whole life's work. How long till the cops get here? Approximately 10 to 15 minutes, sir. Please keep a safe distance. 15 minutes. A thief could strip the place clean and be gone by then. I hung up the phone and popped the trunk of my car. My hands were shaking as I dug through some old tools, my fingers wrapped around the cold steel of a tire iron from a flat last spring. The weight of it felt good, solid. Whoever was in my house was in for a much bigger fight than they expected. I crept along the side of the house using the Christmas decorations and snowy bushes as cover. The broken basement window told the whole story with jagged pieces of glass pointing in. There was snow on the basement floor where they'd climbed in, and upstairs that flashlight was still sweeping through my bedroom. The light stopped at the dresser where Dorothy's jewelry box was, then it went to the closet where I kept my papers. This wasn't some random smash and grab. Someone was looking for something specific. My hands got tight on the tire iron. I was so angry. This is my house, my safe place. My life with Dorothy and some crook thought they could just walk in and take it. I hid in the shadows by the broken window. I listened for any sound from inside. I heard footsteps creaking upstairs. Someone was moving like they knew where they were going through rooms with 40 years of memories. The flashlight beam swept back and forth, always searching. What were they after? Cash, jewelry, electronics, or something else? Something more personal. The footsteps came toward the stairs, heading down to the basement, right to me. I could see my breath in the cold air. I was tense, pressed up against the side of the house. I held the tire iron up ready. Whoever came out that window was going to deal with a very angry homeowner who was sick of this. The basement light flicked on for a second, then off again. They were being careful, but not careful enough to think I'd be waiting out here. I heard papers rustling, documents getting shuffled. Looked at, picked out. The sound made my stomach turn. Those were my private papers, our personal records. They were pieces of the life Eleanor and I built. How dare some stranger touch our private business? A chair scraped on the floor down there. Drawers opened and shut. The search just kept going slow and methodical. They weren't in a rush, even though they could get caught. Whoever was in there felt safe. They were sure they had time to find what they wanted. They were dead wrong. The flashlight beam came closer to the broken window. It made long shadows across the snowy yard. I pushed myself tighter against the brick, the tire iron shaking from the cold and the adrenaline. A bag came out first, a dark one stuffed with papers and small stuff. Then I saw a leg. They were checking the frame for broken glass before climbing out. I held my breath, totally ready to move. Just one more second. One more second, and I'd know who thought they could rob Robert Mitchell on Christmas night. The second leg came out of the window, then a body. I knew who it was, and it made me feel sick. Tyler Brooks stood up in my backyard holding a bag stuffed with my documents and valuables. He had no idea he wasn't alone. Tyler. I stepped out of the shadows. I had the tire iron raised and my voice cut through the silence. He spun around. He almost slipped and fell on the snow. The bag dropped from his hand. Papers scattered all over the white ground. His face was pale in the dim light from the neighbors' houses. Robert, I didn't want to. This wasn't my idea. Then whose idea was it? I moved closer, the tire iron feeling heavy and right in my hand. Papers were all around his feet. I knew what they were even in the dark. Eleanor's will bank statements, stock certificates. Tyler put his hands up, backing away until he hit the house. He had nowhere to run. He said you'd be gone for hours. He said you'd never find out who told him, but I already knew. A cold feeling just hit me. It felt like my heart was turning to ice. Brandon knew you'd be at dinner for hours. The words just came spilling out of me. He set up this whole Christmas thing so I could... The tire iron just dropped from my hand, hitting the snow with a soft thud. My own son sent you, Tyler. Just nodded, looking miserable. Tears were running down his face. He wanted Dorothy's will and the Boeing stock papers. He said you were going to give millions to charity instead of us. Every word he said felt like a punch. I stumbled back. I just stared at the papers all over the snow. I could see Dorothy's handwriting on them. Stock certificates worth more than most people ever see. Our life savings, just something for them to steal. That Christmas dinner, my voice was just a rough whisper. The apology, the invitation, it was all a lie. He's desperate, Robert. Tyler got on his knees trying to pick up the papers with his hands shaking. He's got gambling debts, bad investments. He owes money to guys who don't mess around. My legs felt weak as the betrayal really hit me. Brandon looked me right in the eye at dinner. He ate my food, took my gifts, and he let his kids sit on my lap. All while he knew his friend was tearing my house apart. How much does he owe? Almost $200,000. I could barely hear Tyler's voice. He found out about the Boeing stock from Dorothy's will. He said it was family money anyway, that you'd get it eventually. Family money. Dorothy's legacy, everything she saved and invested for years just to pay off his gambling debts. The stock she bought with her teacher's salary. Saving up penny by penny, dollar by dollar. She trusted me to be smart with it. I picked up one of the papers from the snow and saw Dorothy's name written right at the top, $2.3 million in Boeing stock. Bought over 30 years of our marriage when the company was down and the shares were cheap. It was our nest egg, her safety net, and he was going to steal my wife's life savings to pay off his gambling debts. Tyler just nodded. He'd stopped trying to pick up the papers. He said you'd never even miss it, that old people don't need that much money. It was so cruel, so casual. Like my 68 years didn't matter. Like Dorothy's memory was just something to steal. Something inside me just snapped. I stared at Tyler, then at the papers in the snow, and back at the broken basement window. It looked like a big hole in the side of my house. Everything I thought I knew about my son, about us, about maybe fixing things between us. It was all a lie, just greed and desperation. Then my phone started ringing. The sound was so loud in the quiet night. I looked at the screen. Brandon is calling. Tyler looked miserable. He's probably wondering why you left dinner early. He's going to be so mad I got caught. I just stared at my son's name on the screen, my thumb right over the answer button. Behind me, I could hear police sirens getting closer. In front of me, scattered in the snow, was the mess of what he did to Dorothy's trust and my faith in my own family. The phone just kept ringing like it wouldn't let me forget. Police sirens were getting louder in the cold night air. The red and blue lights flashed through the trees like some kind of sick Christmas decoration. I stood there looking down at Tyler, who was a mess in the snow next to my papers. I could still hear his confession hanging in the freezing air. 2 cop cars came around the corner. Their headlights swept over my yard, lighting up the broken basement window like it was evidence in a photo. Cops got out all business hands on their belts and quickly sized up what was happening. "Sir, are you the one who called 911? The lead cop walked up to me calm and in charge. His badge was catching the glare from the Christmas lights on the neighbors' houses. "I'm Robert Mitchell. This is my house and that guy broke in." I pointed at Tyler and he threw his hands up higher. He looked like he was surrendering to an army, not just two local cops. The second officer knelt down next to Tyler. He started the usual routine with the rights and the handcuffs while his partner talked to me. "What was stolen, Mr. Mitchell?" I picked up Dorothy's will from the wet snow. The edges were dark and damp, but I could still read it. He took my financial papers. My late wife's will, Boeing stock certificates worth over $2 million, my banking information. The cop's eyebrows went up as he looked at the soggy papers. "That's serious. We're talking grand larceny." James Parker came out of his house in a bathrobe over his pajamas, his slippers crunching in the snow as he walked toward the commotion. His face showed he was relieved but also worried as he looked at the scene. "James, were you the one who called me?" I asked as it all started to make sense. "I saw someone with a flashlight in your house." "Around 9 o'clock, he said, nodding at the cops. "I couldn't just do nothing, not on Christmas night. I had to dig up your phone number from the neighborhood list. You saved a lot more than just my stuff tonight." I grabbed his shoulder, just so glad to have a neighbor who still gets involved. The lead cop looked between us, finally getting it. "So this wasn't random. Mr. Brooks here knew the house was going to be empty." "He's my son's friend," I said, and the words tasted like poison. "My son knew I'd be at his house for dinner. He planned this." Tyler was now in the back of the squad car, cuffed. He just stared out the window, looking like his whole world was ending. The officer, taking his statement, just nodded grimly as he heard the details, the gambling debts, the whole plan, how they used Christmas to do it. Then my phone rang again. The sound was so wrong with all the cop stuff going on. Brandon's name lit up the screen. It felt like an accusation. "Should I answer this?" I asked the officer. "Go ahead. Might be interesting to hear what he says." I took the call and put it on speaker for the cops to hear. "Hello, Brandon. Dad, where are you? We're all getting worried." He sounded just the right amount of concerned and confused. "You've been gone for over an hour. I'm coming back, son. We need to talk." The line went dead silent. I could practically hear him trying to figure out what my tone meant. "Is everything okay? You sound off." "You'll understand soon enough." I hung up before he could ask anything else. The cops finished up their reports while I picked up the papers scattered all over the floor. Every single page was a piece of Dorothy's legacy, almost stolen by her own son. Those Boeing stock certificates felt way heavier in my hands than they should have. 30 years of Dorothy saving every penny from her teacher's salary. "We'll need you to come in tomorrow to give a final statement," the main cop said, handing me his card. "Mr. Brooks is facing charges for breaking and entering and attempted grand larceny. And probably some other stuff once we figure it all out." James walked me to my car as the cop cars pulled away. I could see Elton's pale face in the back window, looking like some kind of ghost. "You sure you're okay to drive over there?" James asked. "That's not going to be an easy talk." I took one last look at my house. The broken window, the messed up snow. Even the Christmas wreath on my door felt like a sick joke. "Some things can't wait, James. The truth has to come out now." My car took a second to start in the cold, the engine complaining about having to go anywhere. As I backed out, my headlights lit up the Christmas decorations on the front door. The bright red bow just felt wrong, knowing I was about to tear my family apart. But Dorothy's will was safe on the seat next to me, saved from all the lies and greed. No matter what, her legacy was safe now. My headlights hit Brandon's house as I pulled into his driveway. The warm light from the windows and the blinking Christmas lights made it look like the perfect happy family. I could see them moving around inside. My son was pacing by the Christmas tree, and Ashley was talking with her hands, clearly worried. The papers I got back were on the passenger seat like evidence for a trial. Dorothy's will was a little damp, but you could still read it. The Boeing stock certificates had her careful signature on them from years ago. I picked them all up carefully. Each one felt like a weapon for the fight that was about to happen. I didn't knock. They're still family, after all, even if greed and lies had ruined that word. I opened the door to a room full of worried faces. Ashley was folding towels near the kitchen, Kevin was reading a magazine, and Martha was doing a crossword. The kids were on the floor playing with their new Christmas toys. Everybody looked up when I walked in, and I saw the look on Brandon's face change from relieved to confused, then to scared as he saw my expression. "Robert, thank God," Ashley said, rushing over to me. She looked really worried. "What happened? You look awful." "Why don't you ask your husband what happened, Ashley?" I laid the papers out on the coffee table, slow and deliberate. I made sure everyone could see Dorothy's familiar handwriting on the will, the Boeing logo on the stock papers, and the bank numbers on the statements. Brandon just stared at the papers like he was a dead man. Dad, I don't know what you're talking about. Here's Dorothy's will and the Boeing stock certificates Tyler tried to steal tonight. I kept my voice calm, just letting the facts speak for themselves. He's with the police right now, charged with breaking and entering an attempted grand larceny. Kevin's magazine just dropped from his hands. Stock certificates. What stocks? Dorothy left me Boeing shares worth $2.3 million. I watched everyone's face as they tried to figure it out. Surprise, then confusion. And then it started sinking in. She bought them over 30 years, investing her teacher's salary when the company was in trouble. Brandon found out that I planned to donate the inheritance to veterans groups and educational charities. Dad, that's our family inheritance. Brandon's whole act finally cracked, showing the desperation underneath. You can't just give it all away to strangers. I can do whatever I want with my money, but you decided to steal it instead of just talking to me. Ashley sank onto the couch, her hand flying to her mouth as it all clicked. The Christmas invitation us suddenly making up. It was all planned to give Brandon an alibi while his friend robbed my house. I turned to look my son right in the eye. You used Christmas, you used your own children's joy, your wife's kindness, and you used my grief for your mother to cover up a theft. Martha's crossword puzzle fell to the floor, totally forgotten. Brandon, please just tell us this isn't true. But there was no point in denying it. The proof was all over the coffee table. And his friend's arrest meant there was no way to cover up the whole scheme. You don't understand the pressure I'm under, the debts, the people I owe money to. How much? Kevin's voice was sharp, like a man who's handled money his whole life. $200,000. Brandon's confession landed in the room like a bomb. Bad investments, some gambling. It started small, but it got out of control so fast. So you decided to steal from your father. Ashley's voice broke. To use our own kids as props in a crime. Timmy looked up from his model airplane, sensing the tension he couldn't understand. Why is everyone yelling? Emily clutched her new art supplies tighter. Colored pencils scattered on the carpet like little broken pieces of the family that was shattering around her. Your father made some very bad choices, I said softly to the children, then looked back at Brandon. Choices that hurt people who trusted him. I didn't want to hurt anyone. Brandon was completely breaking down now. Years of lies collapsing now that he was caught. I just needed time to fix things, to pay back what I owed. By stealing from your father on Christmas night, by lying to your wife, using your own children as alibis. Kevin stood up, his usual quiet self replaced by pure anger. Ashley was crying now, not the gentle tears of Christmas, but the harsh sobs of someone watching their life fall apart. How long have you been lying to me about money? About work, about everything? Martha pulled the confused children in closer, trying to shield them from the adult mess ruining their Christmas. I looked around the room at Ashley's tears, at the grandparents' shock, at the kids who didn't get why their Christmas joy had turned into this chaos, and at my son, just a wreck of guilt and desperation. This family was destroyed. Greed had just torn us apart. The Boeing stock is going to veterans programs and education funds, just like Eleanor would have wanted. I grabbed the papers off the coffee table, ready to walk away from this disaster. She always believed in helping people, in building something that mattered. You just turned her legacy into a score. I got up to go, but I stopped at the door to look back at the ruined Christmas. Ashley was still crying. Kevin was trying to calm Martha down. The kids just sat there confused and scared among their broken toys, and Brandon was still slumped in his chair with his head in his hands. Ashley, you and the kids always have a place in my home. You're not to blame for any of this. I stepped out into the cold December night, leaving the warm house and the wreck of my family behind me. The morning sun came through my kitchen window, making long shadows on the table where I'd laid out Dorothy's papers next to her photo. I had coffee steaming in my favorite mug, the one she gave me 20 years ago that says "World's Best Husband" in faded letters, and I looked over the stock certificates with new eyes. Those Boeing shares weren't just about the money. Every purchase date had a story. September 1995. Back when the company was struggling with layoffs, Dorothy saw an opportunity. March 2001. After 9/11 killed the airline stocks and she knew they'd recover. December 2008, during the financial crisis when everyone else panicked. She bought them on faith. My phone rang, breaking the quiet morning. It was Ashley and my chest tightened up. Robert, I'm so sorry. Her voice was hoarse from crying, but she sounded determined. I never knew what Brandon was planning, none of it. Ashley, none of this is on you. You're a good woman who just trusted the wrong guy. I'm filing for divorce. The words just rushed out like saying them fast would make it hurt less. The kids don't deserve a criminal for a father, and I won't live with someone who could do what he did. You and the children are always welcome in my life. Thank you. That means everything to me right now. After she hung up, I just sat there staring at Dorothy's picture, thinking about our talks about family, about values, about what really matters in life. She would have been heartbroken over what Brandon did, but she'd be proud that the truth was finally out. A knock at the front door pulled me from my thoughts. James Parker was on my porch and you could see the worry on his face. "How are you holding up, my friend?" "It hurts, James, but at least the lies are over." I motioned for him to come in. So damn grateful for a real friend when my family had been destroyed. "You did the right thing. The truth always matters, even when it's hard." Dorothy would be proud that justice came before family loyalty. I poured him some coffee, and we settled into an easy, honest conversation. We talked about practical things like changing the locks, upgrading the security system, and changing my will to make sure Brandon could never get his hands on the inheritance. James's experience as a cop was a huge help for protecting me from any future scams. "So what are you going to do with Eleanor's shares?" he asked, as he looked over those Boeing certificates. "Honor her memory, veterans organizations, scholarships for school, community programs, things that build people up instead of tearing them apart." James nodded. He understood. She would have wanted that. After he left, I called my lawyer to get an appointment to change my will. Then I called the bank to put extra security on my safe deposit box. Dorothy's legacy was going to be safe from greed. It was going to charities she would have supported. The house felt different now. Not lonely, just peaceful. The lies were gone. The act was over. I'm 68 years old with friends who care about the truth and a daughter-in-law who has integrity. And I've got grandkids who deserve better role models. Just then my phone buzzed with a text from Ashley. It said, "The kids want to know when they can visit Grandpa Robert again." I smiled and I typed back, "Anytime. We'll make some new traditions." I looked at Dorothy's picture on the mantle and I felt like she was there helping me decide. The money she saved was going to help veterans get jobs, pay for scholarships for teachers like her, and help community programs that make families stronger, not break them apart. "Your Boeing stock is going to help people build better lives," I said to her picture. "Just the way you would have wanted." Brandon picked greed over family lies over love and stealing over trust. I picked honor over blood. I chose truth even when it was hard and integrity over just being comfortable. The December sun streamed right through my windows, lighting up the dust floating in the air. Outside, the neighborhood was covered in a clean white blanket of snow. It felt like a chance for a fresh start, a new beginning. I opened the front door to breathe in the crisp winter air and looked out at the quiet street where James had stood watch for me. My future wasn't what I'd planned, but it was cleaner and more honest. It was built on something solid that wouldn't fall apart. Dorothy's legacy was safe. The truth won out over the lies. My real family, the kind built on love and respect, not just blood, was going to be okay. And that was enough. That was everything. If you liked this story, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share what you thought about it in the comments. To listen to our next story, click on the box to the left. Thank you.